heard there's going to be a Buckeye tree in your honor eventually.
Yes, sir.
What
Thank you.
What do you think about that?
That's one of the things that I wanted to have here at Ohio State. By the time I left, I wanted to have a Buckeye tree here. So, I mean, it was like really cool to have one, you know, because I've always had a dream. I wanted my name to be just somewhere in the Woody, whether it was Captain or Buckeye tree, just have a picture on the wall so I'd have a reason, you know, to take my grandkids here and be, oh, yeah, no, I used to do this back in the day. You know, I've always wanted to have that sort of reason to come back to show stuff off, you know, so it's really cool.
Harris, when you go back and evaluate the last game of the season, the immediate aftermath of that game, what was the rebound like in this facility, your conversation with your teammates? What was the rebound the days after? And then you obviously get the chance to play. Can you walk us through that kind of emotional journey all the way?
Yeah, I would say, you know, it was definitely a different feeling around the facility after that game. I would say that we had to take a minute to step back because, like Coach Day said, we were no longer in control of our destiny, which we had been all season long. So I think being able to take a step back and to realize at this point, we need to reflect on everything leading up to the game, which I feel like we had a lot of time to do that, but at the same time, just giving everything to God and sort of being like, so my mom was kind of like, you're treating it like the turbulence when you're on a plane. Sort of the best way to deal with it is just to realize you're not in control and just to almost, you know, act like it's not there until it's over. So I would say in terms of, that was the mindset I felt like I had to have when, you know, it was not in our control, but it was depending on what other teams do. And we prepared the week before, you know, championship games, you know, for the conferences, as if we knew that we were in to keep that mindset. Then to opt into that sort of break mentality, right? That can easily creep in. So instead of doing that, I feel like, you know, the coaching staff did a great job of keeping us in a routine as if we were about to go play, you know, which helped. So when we saw our name up there, it was kind of automatic, you know what I mean?
It's especially interesting because there's guys like yourself, maybe even CJ, who if USC doesn't win that game and maybe you don't get to the fourth spot, you might not be playing again for Ohio State, considering what your future looks like. You know, there were some guys that had some decisions to make. So it's another element to that journey where you're kind of like waiting to find out your own future.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder how you handled that.
Yeah, so, I mean, going into this year, I kind of wanted to push all thoughts about that till, like, the end of the season, because I've seen a lot of the seasons not go with people's way because they're too concerned about what they're going to do after the season instead of having their mind right where their feet is at, which I've been trying to focus on. So I would say, you know, that game had definitely like a lot on the line, right? Like the games that we were watching. But I would say at the same time, I wasn't trying to spend that time trying to decide one way or another. So I wouldn't, you know, put myself in a position to switch my mindset away from the Buckeyes ultimately, you know what I mean? So I didn't want to take that time to come to that conclusion. Does that make sense?
What was that moment like when USC lost and it kind of felt like, okay, we have a chance? I know you said it felt like you were preparing for that, but there had to have been a moment where you felt like, okay, we can do this. We might be in.
To be honest with you, I watched the game with my girlfriend and she was elated. She was jumping up and down. For me, I sort of treated it like a game here. Like when you win, I'm excited. But then in my mind, I was on the TCU. I was on, okay, I'll wake up, I need to watch that game because that's going to secure it. There's no doubt about it. So I feel like I enjoyed it for a little bit, but I was on the next one. I sort of had that mentality as if I was, you know, there trying to watch the game, like, because I knew, you know, you never know how the committee's going to go. But when both lose, that's kind of all you needed for the emotion and feeling to be, all right, we're good, we're back on. You know what I mean?
What was it like here at the Woody when you guys all watched that moment when the logo popped up and it's 100% for sure happened?
I feel like it's kind of the same way how I felt after the USC game is the kind of energy I felt. Like everyone was excited, like, okay, let's go. But then we all got up and we're talking to each other, okay, so it's back to business, it's back to the usual preparation instead of, we can relax, we're in, great. Versus, okay, we're in, this is what we wanted, now it's time to execute, you know what I mean? So.
Juwan's also picked up a lot of All-American recognition. Have you guys talked about, just how crazy it is that you booked into the same lines and both been, All-Americans?
Yeah, so we talked about it a little bit. We just had like a team meeting one day, and the way we took to the path we took to the offensive line room, we were looking at the wall and saw like the spaces on the wall for the next people, and we were talking about how crazy it is that we'll both have the opportunity to have a picture here on the wall and have a tree here, at the same time is really cool,
What's different about playing next to him as opposed to playing opposite him?
I would say the biggest difference is, being a guard and for one position, and then on the left side just being a tackle. But I don't know. I feel like I still keep the same kind of communication with Juwan. I feel like I don't know how a lot of other left and right tackles really communicate with each other, but I feel like I'm so used to talking with him that whether it's in the huddle, whether there's something that's a type of technique that I want to use, I'll talk to him all the time. So I know we're on the same page, on how we're going to handle play or play action or whatever. So I feel like we still have that communication that we used to have.
Georgia's best known for their D tackles, but get into their D ends a little bit. I think that they lost their best rush end to an injury earlier this season. But what have you seen from their D ends so far?
Yeah, both their defensive ends are hard players. Watching film on them, they're not. I feel like you see a lot of talented players who show flashes of greatness, but then there's a couple plays of laziness here and there. But I think the one thing that I respect about them is that they're very consistent and they play hard, and they don't stop till the whistle's blown. And I feel like as a tackle, you can respect that on film, and it makes it more fun and prepare for those opponents who go as hard as you do. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's kind of I respect their game in terms of their ability to speed and power, their ability to rip move, all the stuff that they can do. I think they're talented players. So you definitely can't overlook their defensive ends despite their interior play.
Paris, how do you balance looking at the second half against Michigan, trying to fix those mistakes but not lose sight of the identity you guys had through the first 11 games in that first half against Michigan?
Yeah, I feel like we know who we are, and we know who we are when we execute the right way. So I feel like when we're going into this game, it's not we're going to lose sight of what we know we can do in the big moments.
What were the biggest takeaways maybe from that second half where you guys couldn't get going?
I don't know. I feel like we played pretty well up front. I just think that the one thing for me is that it doesn't really matter, I guess, how good individual groups do. The whole team has to be on the same page. So whether that's just a team communication or whatever that is, I got to be a part of that, and I got to help, in that fixing that for this game, so.
I know you were honored the other night by the state governor's office and the state senate for your foundation and everything you're doing. And I know it was a really cool event. Can you get into that and explain that a little bit and how that went?
Yeah, so that was really cool, and it was humbling to receive that recognition. I had no idea that that was going to happen, and when it happened, I was just thinking about how when it comes to doing service, you don't go into it thinking about the recognition or the applause or the it's about helping others. So I feel like this is we're really surprised in me for them to, I guess, flip the script a little bit. And I feel like for me and my mom and just everybody on the board and everybody who volunteers at the foundation, it was really awesome, because that was really unexpected, you know what I mean? And so I think just to know there's a lot of people out there in high places that know what we're doing is really cool. So yeah, I appreciate that a lot.